Okay, I've accepted it there. I've accepted it there. We'll address that question. Good evening, everyone. For tonight's meeting of the Town Whately Planning Board, I'm calling the meeting to order at 5:03 p.m. So first, we're going to do two approval not required endorsement reviews. The first one was on the agenda. This pertains to 261 River Road. Then just yesterday, we got another one, and I verified that everything's in order. So, and rather than delaying it to the topics not reasonably anticipated, we're just gonna get that done. Okay? So we'll go over those. So we're gonna start, and we're gonna start with this one. And Mark, you're here, you wanna come off mute?
Yep, I'm here.
Hey there, Mark. Just so I don't mess this up, can you just remind me how your name is pronounced, please?
Olszewski.
Olszewski, thank you. Okay, so Mr. Olszewski is here representing the A&R to be performed at 261 River Road. I'll tell you that we have the required number of applications, fees been paid. There's no APR existing on the parcels that would otherwise prevent us from acting on this. And I'm sharing my screen to show the plan. And what we have physically for the two of you who are here, the leftmost pile is Mr. Olszewski's, and then the one to its right is the second one that we're gonna take up. Okay. So I know, Mark, that you gave us a little bit of a rundown on an informal rundown, very much appreciated. It came to our last meeting and gave us a heads up about this. Why don't you just give us again, a couple of people weren't here last time, give us a thumbnail sketch of what this is all about, please.
Sure. So this was my dad's last
He's cutting in and
to
out.
put the back piece of property. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So apologize for that. So we want to put the back piece of property into an APR. That was one of my dad's wishes. He wanted to keep it as agricultural land and to do that in perpetuity. That's what we plan on doing. That's why we did the boundary line adjustment to give a access to make it, access to the back lot. And that's really why we did the lot line adjustment to incorporate that.
Very good. And in the detail area of your plan, so right now you can see what the lot lines are, the existing lot lines. There's kind of a little diagonal line and then it goes over here to the boundary. So you're eliminating those two existing lot lines and creating this new lot 1 parcel, which has the required, it would be not that it's of a concern for an A&R, but it is that would conform to zoning. And then you're creating now a new lot 1 and 2 out of the existing parcels. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, all right. The rules of A&Rs are pretty straightforward. It meets all the required conditions as far as I can tell. Under our subdivision regulations. Does anyone on the board have any questions about this?
No, I don't.
I do not.
Patty, Sarah?
No,
You're good.
sorry, I have to keep forgetting to unmute myself. No, I have no questions.
Okay, very good. It's got frontage and no other complicating factors. So,
I once again, because I wasn't here at this last meeting, and I thought I read something about those discussions that meet the requirements for the APR, the frontage and stuff, and he does meet all those requirements.
yes, the key discussion we had was Mark was informally using the term flag lot.
Yeah,
That he intended that the back, what's depicted here as lot 2, was going to be a flag lot. An APR lot needs to be a buildable lot.
it needs to be a buildable lot.
It needs to be a buildable lot,
Okay.
all right? And again, this is not a concern for us doing A and Rs,
Not an
right?
issue.
But we often chit chat
Yeah.
with, make sure everyone aware of the issues and that the only way it can officially be a flag lot is he has to get a special permit
Mhm.
from the zoning board of appeals for that.
So his 50 feet of frontage, we can set aside.
Yeah. That would do that.
Yeah.
But that's a ZBA issue and something he would take up before he would be able to get an APR on lot two. It would have to, for it to be buildable, my understanding, for it to be buildable and comply with zoning, because it doesn't have the required frontage as just a regular lot at 50 feet, it would have to obtain a permit to be designated a flag lot.
Will he have an issue with the driveway width regulations that we have? Then we have that with Mr. Morosky.
We've also established that he may have to go before the select board for that.
For variance.
It's really, the only issue for access it is, and it's really for driveways.
Right.
You know, so I think that's a
Okay.
highway department issue.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, Mark, we were just sort of chit chatting about some of the things that I think you're aware of that might affect the designation of lot two as a buildable lot. But this is not germane to our decision-making tonight because A and Rs do not certify compliance with zoning. And you understand that.
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Thank
that sounds good. Okay, so do I hear a motion, or I would like to hear a motion to endorse this plan as meeting the requirements of an A and R?
I make the motion to endorse the plan that meets the requirements of A&R.
Okay, motion has been made by Laura. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Sarah, that was you, Sarah? Or was
Yes.
that Pat? Okay,
I was gonna try, but she beat me.
very
We
well.
have to clarify this particular property with the motion because we have two on our agenda tonight.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it's pretty clear from the
Yep.
text that we're approving
Yep.
the one that we're just discussing.
Okay.
Okay. Very good. So the motion has been made and seconded, made by Laura, seconded by Sarah. Roll call vote. I'll start with you, Patty, and again, yep, you'll remember to come off mute. So yes or no?
Yes,
Yes to endorse, Sarah?
Yes,
Yes to endorse, Laura?
Yep.
Yes to endorse, JD?
Yes.
And Brandt is yes to endorse, so it passes unanimously. So Mark, what's gonna happen next? And it's gonna give us a few short days to get all your documents in order for you. So tonight, before tonight's over, I will sign that your Form A application indicating that it was received tonight by the planning board and that was also endorsed tonight by the planning board, and you will be able to get a copy of that signed Form A. And I will notify you by email when all the materials are ready for you to pick up. So this is part of what you're going to pick up, a signed Form A. The second thing is that you've given us a Mylar of your plan and 4 paper copies. So because not all planning board members are physically present here tonight with the paper plans, 3 of us will sign, put our signatures on those plans. Sarah and Patty will, within the not too distant future, come down to town offices and add their signatures to the plans. And as soon as all of that's done, and I convey all of these materials back to the town clerk, I'll notify you that you can come to town offices at your convenience during the town clerk's working hours to pick up your Mylar plan, 1 paper copy, and 1 copy of your signed Form A. Is that clear?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you for doing business with the Whately Planning Board. You have any other questions or anything else for us?
Do you need a copy once I record it?
No, I've never been asked that question.
Okay.
we keep a
I,
copy.
we keep, one of your paper copies is held by the planning board, 1 copy is held by the town clerk, and 1 copy is held by the the board of by the assessor's office. But I don't believe we need anything back from you after you take this to the registry of deeds. That's between you and them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I mean, in fact, just FYI, we've done these A&Rs in the past where the applicant wasn't actually entirely sure they were going to, after the conversation we'd had, that they were going to take it to the registry of deeds. So there's really no requirement that you do that, but none of
Right.
this takes effect, of course, until you do. Okay, very good. So we're going to close on the Olszewski A&R. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right, have a good evening.
You too, thank you.
Very good. I'll remember to sign all of that. Next up is, so we had as of yesterday, we had another Form A submitted, submitted by, applicant is Lovett and Kronberg LLC with, managing executive, but we have I think it's the legal counsel, Peter Lane, here with us tonight. Peter, are you
Yep.
presenting?
I am here. I am Peter Lane, Fierce Bloomberg Ohm, Northampton counsel for Lovett and Kronberg LLC, the owner of 27 Masterson Road.
Okay, very good. And so I'll again let the board know that we received the requisite number of copies of the Form A. We received the $50 A&R fee. We received plans, a sufficient number of plans that meet the requirements of an A&R application. So we are officially ready to go on this one. So per our standard practice, which you just got to witness, Peter, why don't you give us a thumbnail sketch of what this is all about?
Certainly. My clients, the managing member of Lovett and Kronberg, Amy Francis, and her partner, Jesse, I forgot Jesse's last name. She and her partner reside at 27 Masterson Road. They're currently at the zoning board. We've got a request for special permit continued. They are seeking to convert from a single family dwelling to two-family. And under, as thoroughly discussed with the zoning board, we all came to the conclusion that under zoning bylaws 17120 and 17121, they were going to need additional frontage in order to qualify for a special permit. They needed exactly 41 more feet so that they had the bylaw required 75 feet of frontage for the additional livings, for the additional residential unit. So this A&R would propose that through purchase from the abutter at 35 Masterson Road, they would acquire the additional land indicated at parcel A. That will give them a total frontage, I believe, as it says here on the plans, I think 276, which will be more than enough to meet the bylaw requirements. And our sense is that if this is approved here and then we complete the land transaction, we'll be back at the zoning board in January and expect that we would get approval for the conversion to two-family.
So let me just take this moment, and this is a little bit of a sort of looking at you, JD, because this whole thing about the way our bylaws deal with two-family and multifamily units is something I would love for you to delve into and help, potentially maybe bring a little bit more sanity to. But under the current, just so everyone on the board is aware of the situation, so this parcel it's of course in AR1, it's a lot not served by public water up on Masterson Road. That's correct, right, Peter? It's not served by public water.
That's correct, it's well, yep.
That's right. So the minimum frontage is 200 feet, right? Existing lot has 200 feet, no problem. However, we have, again, looking at you, JD, we have a bylaw, 17120, on two-family and multifamily dwelling units. All right? And in that particular bylaw, Part A, paragraph 1, says two-family and multifamily structures shall be governed by the minimum lot size and frontage requirements in the district. However, that's the key, it's always a however, an additional 20,000 square feet of lot area and 75 feet of frontage shall be required for each unit in excess of one. So they want to go from a single-family dwelling to a two-family dwelling. So they need 200 plus 75 feet of frontage. And why this is, I can't entirely say, but just because I was looking at this plan, I actually called Peter earlier today saying like, so you're just buying this little triangular parcel A from your neighbor. Why are you doing that? And this is why, to gain that additional, and from some perspective, which might be unique to me, I look at this and I think that's kind of silly that our bylaws would make this kind of thing necessary. I don't entirely understand. Maybe it's make perfect
To
sense.
see how it shakes out with the new law that passed. They can't,
Well, that's for accessory dwelling units.
it's an accessory, it's a two-family. It's an accessory use.
The question is, does it meet the definition of an accessory use? Peter, have you looked into that? The new Affordable Housing Act and whether this is technically on well, maybe if it exceeds 900 square feet, then it's not an accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah, I haven't delved deeply into that.
So just a heads up, this is not in, we're gonna talk about this later in tonight's meeting. I've done a little bit of research, just so everyone's aware. The Affordable Housing Act goes into effect in February of 2025.
Yeah.
So it's not in effect yet, but it does say that dwellings meeting the definition in the law of an accessory dwelling unit, and it is defined in there, things like that, are, may be built as of right in residential districts. All right, and that zoning can't do the kinds of things that seem to be happening here in terms of additional frontage and
But
stuff
I had
like
an
that.
informal discussion with the building inspector about this, and he said that we can't require people to get a special permit because that can be a yes or no.
Right, yeah, nothing
So there's no
discretionary.
more special permits
Yeah.
for two-family, but
No, I get it, but it's,
he sees a two-family as, the accessory dwelling, it's an accessory, whether it's attached or detached.
that might be conditional on size, like again, it's
We
less,
can't, we can still have our
Right.
sizes that we have, our
Right.
zoning rules.
right,
And then it becomes an issue when someone has a two-family, they want to make it a three-family, now they become commercial.
yeah, okay.
Because three families.
Anyway, so again, we do these things, Peter, we
Yeah.
have these chit chats that are mostly like FYI. We're going to, there's nothing wrong with what you're putting before us,
Mhm.
it meets the requirements of an ANR. If it's my personal opinion that making you have to buy a little triangular piece of land is kind of the silliest thing. It's.
Well,
okay.
I've asked several, both members of the ZBA, and elsewhere, exactly what the dimensions of this thing should look like. I believe I even reached out to the planning board ahead of time to inquire about that. And was each time directed to Mr. Hawkins, the zoning enforcement officer. And this is where we are. We've been directed that if we get the frontage, we will be approved at the ZBA. And so that's what we're doing.
And just to get this done, it makes perfect
Oh,
sense.
all right, yeah.
But certainly if this were the kind of project that could be deferred until after February of 2025, then I would seriously look into the details of the Housing Act to see if this all could go away.
If I run into trouble at the ZBA in January, I may be amending the application, so.
Okay,
There was
all right.
permitting issues there. Misstatements of what was allowed at first and then what the actual was. There was a legal apartment before and.
Wait, what, are we talking about this property?
Yeah.
Oh, at the ZBA?
No, with the building inspector prior to this.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Anyway, just word to the wise, Peter, go look into the Affordable Housing Act and what comes into effect in February of 2025. But not germane again to what the decision we're making tonight.
Wonderful, thank you.
Are there any questions from any members of the board about this A&R? Sarah? Good?
No,
Very
lot
good.
30, number 35 still has plenty of frontage. 90,
Yes.
79, they still have plenty, yeah.
Yeah, everybody's good. Patty, you're good?
Well, I'm a little confused why on the south side of this, assuming north is up, why you're not taking that little triangle as opposed to the north little triangle?
That
And-
might be to give that parcel required frontage.
Oh, he has a flag lot next door.
Yeah, Ms. Krieger at 35 would be able to spare this frontage and still have what she
Okay.
needs to comply.
Again, regardless, it just seems like squaring off the lot makes a bit of sense. But
Yeah,
yeah, no, I have no other further questions. Thank you.
okay. So I'd love to entertain a motion on this, on endorsing this A&R.
I'm going first.
Okay, yeah, dive right in.
I approve the motion.
Well, so you have to make the motion before you
I am
approve it.
making the motion that we approve this A&R.
So the language I'm told is that our motions are to endorse a plan as suitable for an approval not required.
All right,
Yeah.
somebody else endorse and I will second it.
I will second your motion, Patty.
All right, Patty made the right motion and JD seconded, so we'll do our roll call vote. Sarah,
Yes.
Patty's yes, Laura?
Yep.
JD?
Yes.
Grant is yes. Okay, done. So again, Peter,
Mhm.
same deal.
Yep.
I will sign this Form A and all the copies. We will do our planning board signatures on your Mylar and the 4 paper copies.
Hey,
It'll
guys,
take
give me
us-
2 seconds. I'm gonna go hug my child. He just can't.
Okay, all right, totally fine. And don't you try coming down to town offices until I email you.
Okay. I will. My client will probably pick it up. So I'll wait for your email and then let her know she can stop by.
That sounds great.
Great. Thank you all very much. Pleasure to appear for the first time here at the Whately Planning Board. Thank you.
No, we try to keep it painless. Okay,
It
Have a
was.
great
Thanks.
day.
Bye-bye.
okay.
Take care.
All right, so let me get rid of that one. All right, let's see, now. So we've done our 2 A&Rs.
We're on to,
We're on to, so do we have any representatives of DMCTC here with us tonight? I think Isaac is here.
Mhm.
Oh, and Jared.
Yep.
Okay, all right. So just a quick recap for Patty and JD's benefit.
Yep.
We had a little bit of a discussion at the last meeting, but didn't want to get into too much since you guys weren't here. And I just provided some feedback to the MCTC on their proposal. And so I guess I'd like to find out from whomever, Jared, Isaac, where we are. I've seen no new updated proposal in my inbox. And I did feel like the ball was in your court after our last meeting.
Yeah, so we thought we would present it to you at this meeting.
Okay, let me stop sharing. All right, so who needs to share their screen, and can Sarah make that possible, please?
Already happened.
Awesome, Sarah's so good.
So I think it would be Jared. Jared, are you on the call? Okay, if Jared's not on, then I can
I
go
did
through
see
the
He just was muted, he was just talking on
Oh,
mute.
Sorry about that. I'm here. Oops, my
Oh,
daughter
I love
was,
that. I love
yeah,
that.
yeah. Hold
It's a
on,
good
I gotta unwind whatever my daughter did. Hold
No,
on.
that's really good. That's now captured. And
Hold
this
on.
yeah.
Does anybody know how to do this? I'm sorry.
Maybe
Um,
on your video.
Yeah, I think where it
Um,
says stop video, if you just hit
yeah,
that little
okay,
arrow.
video settings.
Then
Okay,
take
Know what
off
you
your
look
filter.
like.
yeah, yeah.
Well, this
Um,
is gonna be a big hit on the,
on
the-
YouTube,
Yeah.
yeah,
You know,
Kind of fun, though. I mean,
if you're sharing
honestly.
screen anyways, it's
yeah,
we won't see the beautiful mustache and
that's right. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm sorry. My name was also I am awesome or something like that. Give me 1 second, guys. Virtual backgrounds, no. Video
Young
filters.
child is going to get some retribution.
Where's my daughter? We need her.
Yay.
I have to say, things
Studio.
that never happen in a conservation commission meeting.
That's right. Here we go. Okay, I'm free.
Yeah,
I'm free.
Okay. That's great.
Put my hat on there we go. All right, we're back. We're back,
You're back.
baby.
All right, you've got the floor.
Okay, that's great. So I put together just a quick like presentation because I think it's useful to actually see what we're talking about and kind of compare. Let's see if I can now execute this part of technology. Hold on. View slideshow. All right. Can you guys see the slideshow?
We absolutely can.
Okay, great. Okay, and it's a full screen. All right. So what does the proposal for light cannabis manufacturing look like? So I wanted to go through and say and just talk through what is already allowed in the space, and then what we're asking to be allowed. And I sort of understand the position of like, look, you guys, that is DMC, is bringing this. This isn't this isn't the position of the board, but be that as it may, I just think it's useful. It's useful for people to sort of understand and see what we're talking about here. So currently in the table of uses, cannabis cultivation and retail are both allowed in the commercial zone.
By special permit.
By special permit, exactly. All this is by special permit, yeah.
Yes.
Hold on, let's see, can I? Oh, there we go. All right, there we go. All right, so by special permit, you can grow up to 100,000 square feet of cannabis in the commercial zone. You can turn it into joints. You can put it in eighth jars. You can label it. You can trim it. You can weigh it. You can do all of these quasi-industrial, light industrial pieces of work. And this is what it looks like. This is what indoor cannabis cultivation looks like. This here is a pre-roll joint machine. This is an automated vertical incline conveyor. This is a weighing machine. This is a filling machine into these doob tubes. Here they're labeling it. They're doing QC and QA. All of this stuff that looks quasi industrial, light industrial, is already allowed in the commercial district. And so, we could come and even with our existing license for retail, we can do this. We can do the things that are pictured here. We can retail, we can label all of this stuff by special permit. And so we have a special permit for the commercial space for retail.
Jared,
Yeah,
I do want a little clarification about that very
Sure.
claim.
yeah,
Because, I mean, what in the table of use do you feel
yeah,
allows all of those? Like, I do see, you
Yeah.
know, on a courier, delivery, retailer, and offsite medical marijuana dispensary in the commercial district by special permit, but
Yeah.
that's it. So
Right.
how are the various processes you're describing here fit within those uses?
So those are nested uses inside of cultivation. So marijuana cultivation is not just cultivation, it's also process, package, these other uses that the CCC has defined as cannabis cultivation. You're allowed to not just grow it, because a cannabis cultivator needs to then sell it. And so the cannabis cultivator grows it and then can put it into an eighth jar, can grow it, grind it up, roll it as a joint and sell joints.
Okay.
So
So
all
let me
of
just-
that, yeah,
Just so I'm clear.
Yes.
So in our table of use under agricultural uses versus commercial uses.
Yeah.
Just fine, just to make sure.
that's right.
That's where we list the use indoor marijuana cultivator. And indeed, indoor marijuana cultivators are allowed by special permit in AR2, but also the commercial, industrial, and industrial. And then also indoor marijuana cultivator in agricultural buildings and greenhouses in existence by special permit. Okay, so all of this, what you're showing us, you're claiming is all part of doing indoor marijuana cultivation.
Right, and all already allowed by special permit in the commercial zone.
Can I just jump in real quick, Jared?
Yeah,
In the Whately, in the bylaws, the marijuana cultivator it's defined as an entity licensed to cultivate, process, and package marijuana and deliver it to marijuana establishments. So which is the same, you know, that language is derived straight from the definition in the Cannabis Control Commission's regulations. And these what look like kind of manufacturing type processes that are up on the screen right now, those are all covered by the Cannabis Control Commission under this process and package aspect of the cultivation license.
you can also do this under a retail license. So retailers are allowed to buy bulk flower, bulk material, grind it up and make joints on site, eighth it up, sell it deli style. They can do all, they're entitled to do much of this other than cultivate. So there are two existing uses, and there are others as well that entitle you, once you have the special permit, to do all of the activities on the screen already in Whately. So then there are other activities allowed in commercial zone with a special permit. And I just want to talk through some of these because they are very much akin to what we are interested to do. So commercial kitchens, so eat-in restaurants, bars, or lounges for serving food or drinks inside the building, takeout or drive-in food services, right? And so those all require commercial kitchens. So that's something that we're interested in, but cannot do with just a cultivation or retail license, is to have a kitchen. And I'll show you in a couple slides what a cannabis kitchen looks like. It's very hard to differentiate from a kitchen, from a commercial kitchen. Commercial kitchens, motor and appliance service and repair, automobile, vehicle, boats, or equipment sales and service is allowed by special permit. Service and repair shops for appliances, small equipment, office and household items, and other similar products are allowed in the commercial district with a special permit. And then I thought this was really interesting is workshops, craft workshops involving the use of hazardous materials. So beyond what we are asking, we're explicitly in our proposal excluding the use of butane, propane, ethanol, solvents. So we are below the level of activity that is already permitted in the commercial zone in what we're asking. So that's all under the commercial section of the table of use. Then in the light industrial, the one that seems most akin to what we want to do, enclosed assembly, bottling, packaging, or finishing plants of non-hazardous materials, which is exactly molecularly the same as what we're asking to do. Then farmer brewery is allowed. So that's, producing beverages. And that's, that's not just in commercial, that's also in AR2. And then there's this kind of, grab all of other non-hazardous uses. So that's warehousing, and then other light industrial uses, not whatever, offensive, injurious, noxious, or hazardous. So those were the two that seemed like spot on for what we are actually asking, which are already permitted, except for, if it were hemp, if I were doing hemp tinctures, or if I were doing hemp edibles, if I were doing hemp whatever, I would be able to do all of this. And just so we're all clear, hemp and cannabis are the same plant. It's just the variation of how much of different cannabinoids are given expression in the genetics. So all of that would be allowed if this were hemp, but not for cannabis. So this is, so I have 3 kids. We read, but not the hippopotamus. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that great piece of literature. But so marijuana manufacturing is the zoning hippopotamus. You're allowed to do all of these things, but not the cannabis marijuana manufacturing is the language. So this is what a cannabis kitchen looks like. It looks like a commercial kitchen. It is a commercial kitchen. It's just making edibles that have THC versus CBD in it. This is what a filling machine looks like. So you could use this machine to fill, these are cartridges, you could use it to fill tincture bottles, you could use it to fill capsules, you can use it to do any variety of things that we're not allowed to do in the commercial zone because of the word marijuana. But you could do this for any other use, including hemp. This is, confectionaries, they're making chocolates. This is all cannabis. I mean, so this is all pieces here. This is a cannabis bottling line. And so it harkens back to the uses, commercial kitchens, motor appliance repair, workshops with hazardous materials, assembly, bottling, packaging or finishing plants, other non-hazardous uses, and brewery. So it's not, yeah, I mean, so that's sort of what I'm looking at here. And so the proposal is the last page of what do you call it? But not the hippopotamus is, but yes, the hippopotamus is, the hippopotamus is considering whether to join the other animals. And so we're saying, but yes, the hippopotamus, please allow this restricted activity that looks a lot like what's already permitted. But it's, we're saying it makes sense to not allow what we call heavy manufacturing in the commercial zone. And so that's what we're saying is solvent-based, this hazardous material, butane, propane, ethanol, CO2. And so that's sort of how we're trying to skin the cat here, is to say, the things that look like what is already allowed, whether it be, for marijuana licenses or for non-marijuana licenses, we're asking that it be, permitted, but just limited to those things that are already either allowed or allowed for other industries, not cannabis. And then I thought I'd share other marijuana manufacturing locations around the state. This isn't by any means scientific. I just went to the CCC website. I clicked on, a number of, there's a number of manufacturing facilities. So I clicked on a few. This is Hatfield. This is Tree Works. That's, in a commercial zone near residential. This is East Hampton in a commercial zone near residential. This is Great Barrington, commercial zone near residential. Uxbridge, Littleton, Adams, Drake, and Hanson. So I just took sort of a survey across the state, and it's not that these are representative of anything in any way, but just sort of showing that this is a pattern that is created in many municipalities, and many municipalities have, without, to my knowledge, major negative outcomes. And I would also just point out that, among the cannabis uses that are allowed, cultivation being allowed in commercial close to residential has a much higher likelihood of having odor spillover than manufacturing. Especially the kind of light manufacturing that we're doing, which is not, solvent based. We're doing kind of the finishing. Really what we're doing is this, the assembly, bottling, packaging, and finishing of pre-extracted material and putting it in from intermediate inputs into final form as finished goods to then sell to, for instance, our neighbor Cheech and Chong that is already there at the sugar leaf shops. And then there was some question just about how local the team is. So I just broke it out by by drive time. So 27% of our team is within a 10-minute drive of our facility. Here are some of our nice faces. So a full 80% of the team works within a 35-minute drive of the facility, and the people that don't are part of the sales team, and they're in Eastern Mass because that's where the people are. So that's it. That's what I thought I'd share, and see if we can have a discussion around that.
Well, Jared, we got to share the actual proposed language.
Oh yeah, great. So
I can do if you don't. If it's not in the slideshow, I can share right from my screen.
Great. Yeah, that's my contribution. I think Isaac can share the language.
I'd like to see the language, and I would request, if you're willing, I mean, it's captured in the recording, but it would be great if you would share those slides
Sure.
back to the planning board so I can circulate to the members.
Great, happy to.
So you're going to share some proposed language. I do have questions. I'm sure others do have questions or comments about presentation, but let's see where we are, at least with.
Okay. So when we met with the planning board, we initially proposed an amendment that did not create a new use, but rather had a version of marijuana manufacturer that it was sort of a reduced version that was only allowed in the commercial district, because a marijuana product manufacturer in Whately currently is allowed by special permit in the commercial, industrial, and in the industrial. So we had a limited version allowed in commercial. Based on feedback we got from the planning board, we've kind of changed the proposal a bit so that now we are proposing a completely separate use altogether, which is called marijuana product light manufacturer. And the way that would be defined would be an entity meeting the definition of a marijuana product manufacturer, but with the limitation that it is prohibited from utilizing hazardous or flammable materials for the purpose of manufacturing marijuana products. Such prohibition shall include, but not be limited to, extraction of THC through the use of ethanol, butane, or CO2, as well as any use properly categorized as a Class 1 Division 1 hazardous location, aka a C1D1, as defined by the National Electric Code. So marijuana product manufacturers encompass a pretty broad scope of activity. And what we're trying to do here is narrow it down to the kind of stuff that Jared was just describing, the kind of so-called manufacturing that really would not look to the average observer like anything related to manufacturing. It would not look like an industrial facility. It would look much more like a commercial kitchen. The normal marijuana product manufacturer use under the bylaws and the license under the Cannabis Control Commission regulations encompasses this commercial kitchen-like activity plus the process of extracting THC distillate from the flower, which is a chemical process, and that's the piece that we're trying to carve out here. So we also would, as part of the amendment, we would propose that it have the same setback requirement as a retailer, because it's much more similar to a retailer than it would be similar to, say, a full-scale manufacturing operation or a cultivation operation. In fact, in terms of potential for nuisance, it's going to be probably less noticeable than a retailer, as it's not going to create traffic and probably less of an odor issue than your average marijuana retailer would be. So just the context here is that other marijuana establishments under the Whately bylaws need to have a 50-foot setback from property lines, except for retailers, which are allowed. Retail is allowed, pursuant to special permit. Retail is allowed in the commercial district, and in that context, a retailer only needs a 20-foot setback because the commercial district is a more dense district. And part of our proposal is that the light manufacturer be treated with that same 20-foot setback requirement. And then the final amendment we're proposing is we would propose a requirement that that light manufacturers submit a statement, submit a statement to the town certifying that no materials classified as hazardous or flammable will be used for the purpose of manufacturing marijuana products on site. So the purpose of that is just to create an enforcement mechanism so that the town can feel confident that someone seeking a permit for this use understands the limitations and is certifying that they're going to operate in compliance with those limitations. So that is the extent of the proposed revisions. I will email this to you, but it's everything in red is what's being proposed as a revision, but everything in black is already part of the bylaws.
I need to just leave that up on the screen.
Yeah, here I'll leave it up on the screen with the part that this definition is the part that really matters.
Great. So I have at least one question. I want to give other members of the board a chance to ask questions and make comments as well. But my question is really to Jared. So I want to confirm my understanding based on your presentation that is it a fair statement that you do believe that there is a meaningful distinction, a distinction worth making? Like right now, the Whately marijuana bylaw just defines marijuana product manufacturer kind of monolithically, right? Just gives one definition. There it is. An entity licensed to obtain, manufacture, process, and package marijuana, blah, 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 blah. All right. But you feel, since you have this notion, there's heavy marijuana manufacturing, and then there's this notion of a more lightweight form. You feel like that's a meaningful distinction, and in effect that you're advocating that we make that distinction explicit in our bylaws and handle the light marijuana product manufacturing, especially with respect to the commercial district. Is that fair?
Yes, and I guess I would say too, that it's not just me. States that legalized adult use marijuana after Massachusetts also make that distinction. So New
I
York
see.
and Connecticut also have multiple different license types, which disentangle along those lines.
Interesting. Do you, in the course of developing this proposal, and I'm sure you're very familiar with Whately zoning bylaws and how things are defined by the CCC, the Cannabis Control Commission, are there inconsistencies between CCC definitions and those in the Whately zoning bylaws, at least as they relate to this particular matter? Like, does the CCC make these distinctions?
The triple C does not. I mean, so the triple C says, as you said, a monolith. I mean, so marijuana manufacturing as a license type encompasses everything from rolling a pre-roll. I mean, it encompasses warehousing, right? You can just warehouse material that still could fall under marijuana manufacturing. It could just be, warehousing as a service. Everything from that to, large scale ethanol based, tens of thousands of pounds a day manufacturing, all falls within marijuana manufacturing. And so to me, painting with that broad a brush, I guess I'm making the proposal that Whately could be more nuanced and allow this particular economic use, which landowners in Whately are requesting to allow tenants, which could then, bring additional economic activity to Whately, investment and jobs that are not currently allowed. And it looks a lot, again, I'm saying the contradiction I guess I'm pointing out is they are allowed, all of these activities are allowed, just not for the hippopotamus for marijuana manufacturing.
Great, thank you. Questions from other members of the planning board? And just so JD, it looks like you're ready to take the
I have
floor.
a couple of comments. One
Please.
comment is I like that they're carving out a new one as opposed to trying to modify the previous one that we had.
Yeah.
There's a lot of discussion that we were modifying, and I like that aspect of it. My question to you is about, because the kitchen, this commercial kitchen, does this fall under the Board of Health and the state requirements for a commercial kitchen?
It's a little tricky. It's a little tricky, because it's a little unclear, to be honest. I'm happy to get back to you on that. But it because of cannabis's special status, what is required is a little unclear. In my mind, yes, we should absolutely adhere to what is required of a commercial kitchen. And that's, I would be fine to, enumerate that in the somewhere as well.
If there's like grease traps or things that you have to make this, that this use is, that it also complies with those requirements of a commercial kitchen, if in fact the Board of Health, the state is looking to do that, I don't know, and you said you don't know, but that'd be a caveat I would have.
Yeah, I mean, so that would be a question for.
I was just trying to regulations.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
are you suggesting
Well,
that,
any commercial kitchen is very heavily regulated.
Yes.
To be inspected and all that stuff.
right,
That whenever we're allowing them to make things that are used for consumption as food.
sure,
So this
Right.
kitchen has gotta
Yeah.
have, it's gotta be, in my mind, it should meet the requirements of a commercial kitchen.
now you're not saying that the light manufacturing, light product manufacturing, this is to Jared, you're not saying that all light product manufacturing is equivalent to a commercial kitchen, right?
No,
That it could be.
You still have to meet certain sanitation standards. I
Yes,
think.
if you're, so what I think is going on here, if I understand this right, is this, we're creating a new, we're defining a new use.
Yep,
And but things that are commercial kitchens that involve cannabis
Yeah.
could fit within that definition without being explicitly mentioned in the definition.
so my question was, does it need to comply with a
Yeah.
commercial kitchen for this use? That's,
I think that's not what they want. I don't think they want to say that they may not have a commercial kitchen
okay,
in,
so there's manufacturing of it that's not, you're still eating it.
so for instance, we may just want to fill vape carts and then put the vape carts into a doob tube and then label the doob tube. That's light manufacturing, doesn't have a kitchen.
Do you want to define those terms real quick, Jared?
Sure. a
Vape
doob-
carts and YouTubes.
Okay, yeah, a vape cart is a cartridge. Typically, it's a 510 thread. It's,
Okay.
but I don't know if you've seen, yeah, it's a little tube.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
has a
yeah.
screw at the bottom and a mouthpiece at the top that people use for the purpose of vaporizing oils. So one of the images I showed was of a vape filling machine. And so,
Yeah.
you know, some people put that into a box, some people put it into a tube. It's called a doob tube. That's, you know, a round cylindrical tube that has child resistant packaging, and then you wrap it with a label. And so
So this
all
is
of that,
just assembly and
it's
packaging.
assembly. Exactly.
The
It's exactly what,
extract, sorry, just the oil that is part of a vaporizer cartridge. That is oil that is extracted typically through a chemical process that would happen elsewhere. So they
Right.
would receive fully sealed little cartridges of the oil, and they're literally just would be assembling it at this light manufacturing facility.
So I think the point, JD, is that if this were to go forward.
Yeah.
And somebody obtained a special permit.
Yeah.
For this use in the commercial district. And they wanted to establish a commercial kitchen using these products, manufacturing edibles there.
Yeah,
They would have to meet other requirements. Now, the question is,
That's not
does that
about
need to be
review.
mentioned?
that's the board.
I'm not sure that it needs to be explicitly mentioned in a zoning
Okay,
bylaw. Right, I mean, and all we're saying in the zoning bylaw is what uses are allowed, but then they may be subject to other regulations, just
Okay.
like there's nothing about regulation by the CCC in our marijuana, recreational marijuana bylaw. You don't really have to raise your hand, Isaac, we're all friends here.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but I wanted to make sure we didn't move on before I mentioned it.
Okay,
The cannabis
Well, put
control
your hand down.
regulations. The cannabis control regulations do specifically state that a marijuana product manufacturer that's manufacturing edible products does need to comply with the minimum sanitation standards for food under the state regulations for minimum sanitation standards for food.
That's
I
what
think
I'm
where it gets complicated is that that's enforced by the CCC, not the Department of Health. So it's the Department of Health regulations, but the Cannabis Control Commission has authority over this enforcement. And the Department of Health also prohibits adding cannabis derivatives into food, which does not apply to a cannabis establishment. They can a cannabis establishment that's licensed by the Cannabis Control Commission, of course, can add cannabis derivatives to its edibles, which are they're treated differently. But as far as the sanitation requirements for the kitchen, they have to comply with the same regulations as a commercial kitchen would.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good.
You're good. Anyone else? Laura, Patty, Sarah, comments, questions?
Don't think I have any questions.
You don't think you have any questions? Patty, I saw a thumbs up. And Sarah. So, let's see. So here's where I think we are with this. Maybe I'll just confirm one thing about the details of this proposal, because I think we now actually have a proposal that could go to the next step, and I want to talk about that, but just to clarify, currently in our table of use, we have under light industrial uses, we have one row for marijuana manufacturing or registered marijuana dispensary. Okay? And I think with this proposal, we leave that alone. That stays under light industrial uses. And so and the regulations remain prohibited in AR1, AR2 in commercial, and allowed by special permit and in light in industrial, commercial, because our most general definition of marijuana product manufacturer would apply there, which is all those kind of things, including what Jared has called heavy marijuana manufacturing. But now with the addition of a definition, presumably in our recreational marijuana bylaw, where we have other definitions, we'd add a definition there of this light form. And then we would have a new row, now not under light industrial uses, presumably under commercial uses, and not under agricultural uses. And so we would place this in and around where we have marijuana courier, marijuana delivery, marijuana retailer. So now there would be an additional row as depicted here on this slide. Okay, so the decisions that we need to make. Well, one thing that would need to be done. Well, sorry. We need to decide whether this is suitable or ready to go to a public hearing. All right, we can decide as a board, Sarah raised this question at our last meeting, we haven't discussed whether we want to move forward with this. We can, as a planning board, vote against this and not hold a public hearing. My recommendation is not to do that. I mean, that's again, I'm just speaking for myself personally. I feel like it would be fair and reasonable to take this to a public hearing. And I'd be very much interested in hearing feedback from residents in these affected areas, particularly in the commercial district, how people feel about this, right? Given this definition, this change, all of that. So my recommendation is that we vote, not necessarily tonight, but we vote to take this to a public hearing. And then we decide after that, right? So I'm just giving you a little sense of what I think the process is. And we have time to do this by, in time for potential assuming that we take this to a public hearing and based on the public hearing, we decide to, we take some position on it with respect to letting it go. Remember, the history of this is that the planning board on the prior proposal voted to take no position after the public hearing was closed, which we gave that recommendation to the select board and that let it go forward to the annual town meeting. After a public hearing, we could vote against it and it ends there. So there are many possible futures out of all of this.
They can't appeal our decision if we're against it.
I believe there's always rights of appeal.
Okay.
Um,
I feel pretty much like you do.
And I would, before I even get to a vote like that, I want to make sure I understood fully, like, what discretionary authority we have. And so I want to be much more versed on that question. It wasn't an issue before because we all voted to take no position on it and let it go forward. What my, again, in the spirit of recommendations, and I want to again hear some, a little bit more feedback from all of you. My personal sense is that this is now about ready to go. Like, I wouldn't have any qualms personally with taking this proposal to a public hearing. I would like us all, especially since JD, Patty weren't present at our last meeting, like, I do feel like I'd like to allow some cogitation over this. So I'd like to have a consensus among the board that we're gonna look at this more carefully, because we haven't seen this new language before tonight. This is the first night we've heard Jared's slides. We may have other questions after we sit with this for a day or two. So I would recommend we not make any decisions tonight or take any votes on this, but rather we plan on doing that at our next meeting.
Yeah.
The state still is going to be another topic of our meeting tonight.
Can I say something?
Please, Patty.
Yeah, I mean, this is, my whopping second meeting. And the things that I don't quite understand is there's a lot that's gonna be dug into with this particular proposal. And for me, the fact that they're trying, that they would like us to change the bylaws, it may open the door for others. Not that that's wrong, not that that's bad. I'm just saying, again, I don't understand the full process.
Sure.
So I guess I would like, well, in the Conservation Commission, we used to vote to continue, but I think that what they are proposing is great for them. And maybe doing a special permit is the right way to go. I don't know. Again, second meeting, I'm full. So I would like to ruminate on it. I like the idea of going to the special election, special board.
To a public hearing.
Yeah, what's that?
I just want to clarify, you like the idea of going to a public hearing, or?
Yeah, I do. I really do like that idea. My concern isn't you guys that are proposing this. My concern is others that come in behind you, I guess.
So let me just ask this question, because again, you are new to the board, and what we do is is an art. Just, I want to make sure you understand that amending zoning bylaws is really quite normal, and it's what the planning board does on a routine basis.
Yep.
Right? So it's not unusual, in case you were.
Oh, no. I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt.
Okay.
Okay. No, the thing that I worry about is that if we amend the bylaws, we might be opening the door to something else. And again, I'm a newbie.
Yeah.
You guys can shoot me down. That's fine. But that is my concern.
Well,
And
that's
right, wrong, or indifferent.
I do want to make sure I just check in with Sarah, because I can't actually see your facial expressions, and you did have a question at our last meeting. So where are you at this point?
I think that the board itself needs to look at our entire marijuana bylaw. And I also would be afraid we wouldn't have enough public representation at a public meeting, depending when it was. And it very much has larger ramifications than the very singular purpose that is
Yeah.
being presented to us tonight.
I do want to explore that, but maybe not tonight. I think it's another fair point. I would then. Yeah, okay, I'm just gonna leave it there.
Sarah, you
So-
said that far better than I could have. Thank you.
I've had a longer time to listen to this.
Okay, all right, so I think if Isaac and Jared are okay with this, I think we have no further, let me see if I summarize correctly. We have no further feedback for DMCTC about their proposal. We have no recommended changes to what they're, at least as of tonight.
Mhm.
We do want them to send us a copy of the language and to send us a copy of the presentation. So we have that, and I'll circulate that to the members of the board as soon as it arrives. And we will continue this discussion at our next planning board meeting. All right?
I just want to say that I was impressed with this presentation.
Yeah.
I learned a
I
lot
think
about it.
I think it's helpful. I mean, I have questions in my mind too that I want to ruminate on, like about our definitions and really, because there are some things that
Yeah.
struck me as a little surprising, like, oh, that could be done already in the commercial district by special permit. How is that possible? Because I think there was this intuitive understanding, like, oh, anything that's manufacturing
Yeah.
is not allowed, and, you know, and that was normal at the time, and
Do they need more time to sell this to the people?
well, I don't know, so how does this really happen, right? What I do know is that Chris Larrabee from the Greenfield Recorder he's not participating tonight, but he's been following this. And there have been articles in the Recorder that I think he's done a nice job of publicizing that we're having these conversations, and this is always the risk we run in my experience on this board, that we have public hearings on issues that seem really very important to me, that a lot of people should be really interested in, and we advertise them, and we don't get a lot of turnout, and we don't then really know until then we make our best judgment.
Right.
And then if whatever happens at town meeting is the ultimate decision making.
I mean, could we look at the way that we notify of the public hearings? Maybe that's part of the disconnect, is that people aren't aware that, you know, maybe they know that we have these meetings, but they don't know what we're really talking
sure
about because
that's
they don't
true.
follow it.
And we have
Actually, a
some,
really good point.
yeah, we
I
have
think.
some mechanisms to do this that we can think about. We have a Facebook page.
That's what I was thinking, is like maybe some of those avenues that don't really cost anything. I understand we still have to do the required advertisements, but where this is potentially maybe a more hot button issue, especially
Yeah,
if you are someone who lives in a commercial district, which I don't know that any of us on the board
Right.
actually do.
right.
So that's a factor.
What about putting it in the scoop? If we're
Well, and that's
looking
another
at
great point I was about to say.
longer-
Scoop
Yeah.
is on a particular publication schedule, so we
Okay.
may want to find out, what I might, well, I'll take this action to check in with Joyce Palmer Fortune about the next scoop, or the next
Right,
publication schedule, because I agree that if we were to schedule a public hearing strategically coming soon after the publication of a Whately scoop and get a little blurb in there
Mhm.
about it.
Yeah.
Plus the Facebook page,
I think that could
because
be beneficial.
it would certainly be good to get a fair hearing and a
Mhm.
public hearing. I always feel that the planning board hasn't necessarily, it's to me a bit of a failure if a planning board action comes before town meeting and then fails there.
Mhm.
Maybe I shouldn't be hung up about that, because that just happens, but
I think if we do our due diligence and we make the decision, we still should afford them the right to go to town meeting.
Yeah,
Right,
So-
but if
so-
we, but we.
and
Yeah,
can't
In
do
my
that
mind,
without
it's
the
either I
public
approve
hearing.
it or I take no position, because I
I'm-
think the
I'm-
people need to speak
I
immediately.
tend to feel this similarly, but let's not prejudge it.
I understand, yeah.
But it-
Can I ask a
Yes.
stupid question?
No stupid.
Could we issue a special permit just for them that doesn't
No,
We don't do
lock
a
us
special,
in?
you
Okay.
do not, only the
Okay.
zoning board of appeals does special permits. And it is one of the unfortunate factors of zoning is that this applies to all commercial districts in
Okay,
town.
that was my question. You know,
Yeah.
it's all or nothing.
It is all or nothing,
Okay.
or now.
so just so you know, Patty, like, this means that you could apply for a special permit to do this in the building that I'm building in Legends Road. Because I'm in the commercial district.
I am AgCom. I could build one in my backyard. So, but
Okay, all right, I think I'm gonna bring this to, so Isaac and Jared, do you have any feedback or do you understand where we are?
Yeah, no, I think that sounds like a great idea, and you can tell me if I'm getting this wrong, but my understanding is that the only way that the zoning bylaws can be amended is through a vote at the annual town meeting, which happens in the summer. There's the one that just happened mid-year, but you, I think, rightly suggested that would be the wrong time for us to bring this because there's low turnout, which makes sense. So we're happy. I mean, we're in no rush because this can't happen. We can't get anything amended until the summer. We'd love to, get all the feedback we can from this board and from the public. And my understanding is that if the planning board votes they wouldn't vote to approve the bylaw amendment. They would
do
vote to
not.
recommend. They would vote to recommend it.
Right. And I believe, and I will have to confirm this myself, because the planning board does not technically approve or reject zoning bylaw amendments. All we do are make recommendations to the select board for town meeting. I'm not even clear that we can keep it from the select board. I think we could vote to not recommend it, but it would still go to the select board and they may still be obliged to present it at town meeting marked as not recommended by the planning board.
It has to get approved by the attorney general. But
Well, ultimately, once a zoning bylaw amendment is approved by voters at town meeting, it is considered to be in effect on a contingent basis.
Yeah.
So that if you were affected by the bylaw change, you should not do anything that would be in violation of it. Because if the attorney general supports it or further approves it, then it's truly in effect.
aside from them right here on this,
Yes.
our town council is gonna be involved in all this. Do we get reimbursed for that? For that, our town's cost or town council to cover these types of things?
That is paid for not by the planning board,
Okay,
but that's another step before we do a public hearing. Like what I think I'm going to do proactively upon receipt of this language from them is I'm going to pass it to town council to obtain town council feedback on this. Because we don't do anything at a public hearing until town council has weighed in on it.
Yeah.
So that may lead to other changes. So that's why I wanted to get their proposal into some shape that seemed like I could either approve it or at least not disapprove it, right? That it made some sense.
my point was, can we recoup the cost of town council from this,
Like, can you pass that on to the person who's applying?
the applicant?
Oh, well. I
I don't know.
there's a question about whether, I'll have to think, this is not typically the kind of zoning bylaw change that we hand bill to applicants, but I'm not sure.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right, but that's another
It is a
good
cost to the
question.
town of Whately. I'm on the finance committee. This is a total cost to the town of Whately.
It's a cost to the town of Whately to hold the public hearing and advertise it.
And pay for town council.
Yes, that would be correct. That's right.
I will say on Concom, we used to do that. But
What?
that was a decade ago, so.
I don't know, I'm not up to speed on
Okay.
on that. Like, for example, the public hearing we had at our last meeting was paid for by the planning board. And it was originated essentially within the town, and all that made sense.
Yeah.
Um,
This is originated.
And site review, yeah, that's a really good question, and I'd have to look to see what the legal basis is for billing whomever.
Okay.
Okay, so, and I think this is an appropriate moment, so we're saying that we're going to take this up at our next planning board meeting.
Yep.
And, I'm gonna do a little bit of skip ahead so that Jared and our company can take off. Our normally scheduled meeting in December, well, typically we skip our December planning board meeting. It's around Christmas and New Year's, and then what we've done as a matter of general practice is that in January, we sometimes hold two meetings. One at the first available Wednesday, which would be January 8th,
Mhm.
and then the regular planning board meeting at the last Wednesday of January the 29th. And we do the early January meeting if there is urgent business that we need to take care of.
Okay.
So I think we're going to agree to skip the December meeting. Everybody's good with that, Sarah, Patty?
Mhm.
Since it's the
Alright.
25th, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like. But versus moving it up a week. So we're just not
Yes,
gonna meet.
I think
in
just
December.
skip it.
Do you need my actual verbal approval? Or
No.
Thumbs up, okay, okay. Cool.
Just administrative details. And then how do people feel about if could we meet on January 8th?
I think, yeah, I don't think I have anything else.
Wednesday, January
I can do
8th.
that.
Patty?
Yep.
Sarah?
As long as it doesn't conflict with CPC, and I will ask that they move to the 15th.
Okay, all right. So this is one of these things that I do wanna. Because just again, let everyone know, we're probably going to need to get public hearings on any matters before us done. You know, in like February, March.
Okay,
So, and we're gonna have to do a public hearing on the floodplain bylaw.
mhm.
Has the town administrator indicated that we're gonna push town meeting this year beyond the standard April?
I have no information about that yet.
Okay.
So, so I have to get that information as well for planning purposes. But I feel like I was weighing whether we need to have a January 8th meeting, but I'm thinking that we should, so we can really make some hard planning
Mhm.
decisions about when we're doing various public hearings.
Okay.
All right. Okay, all right, so Isaac and Jared. Put a hold in your calendar for a continued discussion about this amendment at our next meeting on January 8th. Okay, and then that would be a time where I think we do typically vote whether or not to take it to a public hearing.
Does that give them enough time to make the meeting at the end of the month? If we vote then and we say, yes, we're gonna go to is there enough calendar days elapsed for the
Well,
publication?
we don't always have to do our public hearings at a regular meeting date either.
Okay,
So we could decide as a group,
Mhm.
like when we could do the public hearing middle of February or
Okay.
something like that. On a date that's convenient for all of us.
okay.
All right, because we're gonna try to, again, to save money, we're gonna do two or more of these things.
Right.
Okay, sure, okay. So Isaac, you good? Jared, you good?
Great, thank you guys. Thank you very much for your time and
Thank you.
consideration.
Great
All right.
job, by the way.
All right, thank you.
Take care.
All right, so we're gonna move on to the next item on our agenda. I'll try to be quick about this. So what I'm gonna do is share, we're gonna talk about the Attorney General's approval. So, I know I'm screen sharing. Okay, so, I mean, the good news for the planning board, current and former, is that all of the planning board the zoning bylaw amendments recommended by the board in 2024, passed town meeting in 2024, and have now all been approved by the Attorney General's office. We had in that mix, we had proposed this new community housing bylaw, community housing use with a definition. And so we got just a couple of bits of commentary. So if you haven't had a chance to read the Attorney General's letter, which I did, it's posted for the meeting for tonight. I think I circulated it to all of you by email. But basically, they said it seems all fine. There are two major comments. One was there's no real specific definition of community housing. Yeah. Yeah, this, and it's kind of implicit in the language of the bylaw. In effect, it's a use such that these rules apply and at least 25% of the units are considered affordable. So the Attorney General's office kind of said, well, you may want to think about adding a definition. So that wasn't suggested by town council when we passed this by, but they sort of said, you may want to talk to town
Right.
council about that idea. So we may do that.
Okay.
The other major comment, which we knew at the time, had to do with occupancy limits.
We talked about that.
And JD, we wrote it the way we did, knowing that it was gonna be a problem. Not a Attorney General's office gonna throw it out kind of problem. But we shouldn't be doing things in terms of occupancy limits. It's just it's not right. But we had to make this play nicely with the way we deal in our bylaws with accessory apartments, which there's other language there about occupancy limits. So we would have to fix that. So the second comment is right, that we're gonna need to, as soon as practicable, which I want to talk about a little bit in a moment, fix that. Again, this is okay, but we have to be careful in terms of how this is done. So these are the advisory comments. So I just want you to be aware, and we'll deal with these in due time. Okay? Any questions about this before we move on to our next item? No, okay. All right. So the next thing I want to cover is the floodplain overlay district bylaw. And this is where, share this. All right, and this is where I want to do who wrote this? I'm going to explain that. I'm doing a little heads up to Patty. So here's the thing. So the town of Whately has is part of the National Flood Insurance Program. There's a phrasing of that. All right, we are participants. We've elected to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. And to do that, the FEMA requires that communities that do this have floodplain protection bylaws that meet their requirements. And they've updated their requirements. And the state of Massachusetts has created a model bylaw back in 2020. Previous ones were like in the 1980s and before that, right? So, and the planning board, led by Judy Markland at the time, worked with FERCog to draft this floodplain overlay district bylaw in conformance with the most recent model bylaw, okay? And then we got into a couple of sticking points that couldn't be resolved before Judy left the board. I've kind of picked up the ball, and the problem I have is that I'm not super deeply schooled in this. And I think Patty has more subject matter expertise on some of these matters than I do. And I really am hoping that Patty will, in
I will.
particular,
I will.
focus on
No,
this.
I will take this on, honestly. It's well in my wheelhouse.
But the good news, so I want to update you on where we stand with this. Because right now, we're very close. I think we're basically ready to take this to a public hearing.
Okay.
So let me tell you, I've circulated this latest draft. So I did some work with the Conservation Commission to get new language that they're happy with about their role in the bylaw. We've got the town administrator and our incoming community development administrator to agree that the community development administrator will play the role of the floodplain administrator,
Yeah.
which is a designated role in this new bylaw. So those were the two key sticking points. What was the Concom's role and who was going to be the floodplain administrator? Then since our last planning board meeting, I passed the previous draft to the state, the people that deal with the NFIP. I wish I could know what they're called, but anyway, and they did a review of the draft bylaw that I sent them. And they sent back, they said it's basically great except this and this. They needed a couple of little changes made for it to be compliant with FEMA, with the NFIP program requirements. And so I'll just highlight to you here tonight what those couple of changes were. Here, there was a paragraph, this is related to floodway encroachment in part L of this draft bylaw. And we had, the strikeout was the existing language, right? And the state said, no, this is the language that has to be there, okay? So all I've done is I've made that edit to this draft. And I'm going to delete the strikeout. And then there was, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, what
Go ahead.
I will say is this. I have spent my entire career on the Connecticut River. I've done a lot of, we have dams up and down, and all of the feeders. What I will say is this. I'm not entirely sure what it is that people are expecting me to do, but I will read through this and give my, I will also take the training that you sent to me, and I guess I'll figure it out.
So I actually don't think there's much that you need to do at this point, because we are basically almost at the end of the process. So, but the thing that I don't have, there are all of these things that are defined. I don't know enough, Patty, about the details of floodplain management. I'm not a certified floodplain manager.
Nor am I.
And they talk about various zones that have meetings that are a little opaque to me. So just having somebody on the board that really understands, because here's what I think is the status. We have now a floodplain overlay district bylaw that meets the requirements, that was created through a close partnership between the planning board and FERCog, so that all the planning board's concerns, except these little two sticking points, were all sorted out. That's all done in the past. And now the state has looked at what we currently have and said, you're great, except fix this and fix that. And now all we really need to do, once I edit this document, is go to a public hearing and take it to town meeting.
I have a question. How much of Whately is affected by this? Is there a map that shows?
There
it?
are maps, and right now, there are only old maps, 1979
At
era
my
maps.
FERCog meeting, the building inspector, they want nothing to do with this because the maps are so old. It's old data.
Yeah, but there are new maps that Franklin County is in a stage where new maps, draft maps have been prepared. Now, we actually have those.
Can I see them?
I can make those available to
Okay.
you on our OneDrive.
Okay.
They're in these little panels. I can show you. They're like PDFs. So, but those are not official.
Okay.
Until a FEMA process that may take some time, and it could become official. I'm hearing unlikely this summer, but it could be like in the summer of 2026. But that's
also gonna
better
change.
than like
So
10
we
years from
have
now.
to do this because the state's requiring it.
We have to do this because the state's requiring it, and it has to be related to
And
the
the only
existing
approved
maps.
data we have is 40, 50 years old.
Yeah, but
That's great.
still,
This is what the
That
floodplain
one.
maps like.
Okay.
I
But this
really
is
don't think
these
it's that
small
old.
dots, no digital data available.
What I
But our
will say is this.
go ahead, Patty.
Sorry, Laura.
Yeah, just because what I was gonna do, if
It's like
you
right along the river.
give me 1
You're
second
along, like, the
here,
water body.
I'm just gonna show, I'm gonna screen
You're kind
share.
of in my wheelhouse now. So-
Yeah. Right,
Here.
because I want to just show everybody the last available. Let me do a stop share and a new share.
I think elevation too, but I think the bigger concern is,
So
I don't
the
think
last
so. What
FEMA
I'm
maps
sharing-
are 20 years old, if not
Yeah.
25.
Yeah,
And, you know, everything has changed since that point. Everything has changed.
so. If this is
yeah,
not.
but this map that I'm showing is, as far as I understand it, the only official approved map of FEMA flood zones that would be referenced in this zoning bylaw, until such a time as new maps are approved. So this shows shows the FEMA flood zones where those blue areas are
Mhm.
delineate the bounds of the floodplain overlay district. And then when new maps and new boundaries appear, we would then have to amend the floodplain overlay district bylaw, the paragraph that refers to the maps, to refer to the newly approved maps.
Right.
But for now, this is the best that we have.
Let me research. That's all I'm gonna say. Because
That's great. I mean, that's really all I want.
we
So really
own
what
half
I,
the map. We own half the dam on this particular map.
Yeah.
Um,
so I think all I really wanted at this point from you, Patty, is a commitment to, well, I want all of us. I've now been reading this bylaw, but I now want all of us to commit to reading the bylaw. I don't think that there's really a call at this point for changes to it. But if there's something about the bylaw that you find confusing, or you think is wrong, you don't understand, then we should sort that out. But it's against the backdrop of this bylaw has undergone a lot of work and has now been approved by the state. And really, I just have to run it by town council, but I don't even know why if the state's approved it.
Okay.
But I will, right? But to really know that there's at least one member of the board, that being Patty, who knows the underlying subject matter really deeply would be, that's really what I'm looking for. If there are any questions on what does this really mean, or like. So that was my ask, Patty.
Oh, no, and absolutely, I'm your gal.
Perfect, perfect.
This literally is well in my wheelhouse, and that's why, that's, yeah.
So what I'm gonna do, Patty, well, I've circulated this, but my next actions are to just tweak the draft so that the edits made by the state are correctly implemented. I've sent the updated draft back to the state to make sure they agree that I have implemented the changes that they've requested and done so correctly. So there's still one more step that I expect to take place. And then between now and our next meeting, we all read it so that, I mean, I think really all we're gonna end up doing at our next meeting related to this is scheduling a public hearing for it. And trying to do that, like at the same time, we maybe do
Right,
the.
Maximize
the
our-
cannabis thing, right?
our newspaper postings.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Any questions more about this, where we are with the floodplain bylaw?
Nope.
Okay, very good. Okay. So I have been keeping an eye on all the time. So the next item has to do with initial discussions of bylaw revisions needed to bring accessory apartment regulations into compliance with the Affordable Homes Act. So I haven't had a chance to do too much of this, but I want to share my screen and show you and just tell you what I understand about the current situation. Share this. And I will circulate this URL. But this URL, so the state has a webpage that covers the implications of the new Affordable Housing Act for affordable accessory dwelling units. I'm gonna circulate this, and I'm gonna, again, recommend that all of us look this over, but here's what I think I can tell you. So the provisions of the Affordable Homes Act go into effect in February of 2025. Nothing changes until then. But they definitely go into effect in February 2025, and there's nothing we can do. We can't amend our bylaws in any way between that date and town meeting.
Right.
So now I'm not really worried about this terribly, because honestly, the main issue with ADUs, as we all know, in Whately, is that because there's not enough, mainly septic systems. To add on accessory dwelling units is often very expensive because you have to expand or otherwise, and there's investigations into whether deed restrictions could be placed on residential dwellings to sort of basically say, well, there's only 2 people here, and so the existing septic is adequate for, but a lot of that is still to be worked out. So there's a period of time from February until our annual town meeting where these new rules that basically say ADUs up to a certain size can now be built as of right in residential districts. No discretionary special
It
permit.
just came up earlier, though, we require them to have more frontage or area.
And there are limits on, I mean, there's in this, so here's a nice little summary of what municipalities may and may not do. So we can require site plan review. We can require Title V. And we can make certain regulations concerning dimensional setbacks and the bulk and height of structures. And we can impose regulations on short-term rentals. I'm actually pleased, I was delighted to discover that we already have a bylaw in Whately pertaining to short-term rentals. either that are typical B and Bs within a house
Mhm.
or even as accessory apartments. So, we should all look at that to be familiar with it. But what I think we're going to do is, I want to socialize an idea that I'm going to try to put together so we have something concrete. But, so we can regulate their use for short-term rentals. What we can't do is require owner occupancy, which we do at the moment.
Mhm.
We can't require a special permit. We can't require more than one parking space, and we can't, well, there's something that doesn't apply to us because we're not, right? So the main issue that we have is we do require owner occupancy, and our maximum sizes are below what the law allows. So now, starting February, people can build up to 900 square feet, or I think it's half the gross square footage of the existing principal dwelling.
Okay,
So whichever is larger,
okay.
or whichever is smaller, forget how that goes, right? But, so what I'm thinking of doing, the town of Buckland,
Hey,
I've
can
even
I
plagiarized.
interrupt here for just
Go ahead,
half a
Yeah.
second?
go ahead, Patty.
My daughter came home tonight, like I said to Sarah. And they're walking in the door right now, so I really want to spend time with her.
Okay,
So I'm gonna log off now. If that's,
okay, all right,
Okay.
well, do review the minutes
I
so
will,
you know what you missed.
I will.
Okay,
All right, bye.
all right.
Take care.
All right, so the town of Buckland has a really quite good bylaw related to accessory dwelling units. And in the planner, the Massachusetts planner discussion list, it's well regarded. It too needs to be updated to be compliant with this bylaw. The way we handle accessory dwelling units in our bylaws is, I would like to really improve it significantly. We use the term accessory apartments. You really should standardize on accessory dwelling units. And we effectively regulate size and things through a definition, which is just not a best practice. It's kind of a hack.
Mhm.
So it would be much better to have a nice, clear bylaw that specifies what you can do with an accessory dwelling unit and all this sort of stuff. And then you update the table of use for where those, well, basically, they're going to be allowed as of right
Right,
in all residential districts, AR1, AR2, and I think commercial, and then not allowed in industrial. Or maybe well, I don't, anyway, so I have to figure out what that table is gonna be. So what I'm going to try to do for all of us is use the town of Buckland's accessory dwelling unit bylaw as a starting point.
okay,
Edit it to be conformant with this law,
Mhm.
and then we'll have something to talk about.
Right. Sounds good.
Also the town of Irving, at my FERCog meeting with CCIP, Jackie Whiting's head of the Irving Planning Board. They got a consultant, they spent a lot of money and they tweaked theirs to meet this. She told me, I said, is there any help with FERCog? She says, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. She's like, look at what we've done.
Look at Irving's.
Look at Irving. She's like, we
That's
spent a
good.
lot of money. We've already done this.
So, I mean, I haven't looked at Irving. I heard a lot of good things about Buckland. I don't care who I steal from.
Right.
Just steal a
She
good.
said steal ours. She's like, we've
Right.
already been down.
And
that
they
road."
already conform with this new law?
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
all right, so I'll do that. But my ask to you, JD.
Yep.
I would like you to be the Patty
I will do that.
for ADUs.
I will do that.
I will take the action to try to pick a starting point and put some stuff together.
Yep.
But I think what I'd like us to
I'm
agree to is to try to aim to get a new ADU bylaw to annual town meeting as
Okay.
well.
We have to.
Yeah, we really kind of need to. I mean, we could take the position that, well, it's really not a big issue and blah, 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 we
Right.
should.
Right.
I mean, I think, so it's emerging in my mind that floodplain definitely for annual town meeting, an ADU by annual town meeting, and then perhaps this cannabis thing.
Yep.
And I don't know anything else that's necessarily going to make it, but that would be plenty. Okay, so that's all I wanted to share with you. Sarah, you good with that?
Yes.
Okay, that's a yes, okay. You know, we're almost out of time. So, updates on other planning board projects. I did send a little pointer to you
Yes.
about subdivision regulations, and earlier this year, somebody sent this, somebody with property on River Road was like starting to say, well, I've been thinking about doing this as a subdivision, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, and it just made the little hairs on my neck go up, like, oh, boy. So I would like to possibly, I don't think this is urgent,
Right,
because.
but it is one of those things you don't want, we should have something in place before somebody comes to us
Yeah,
with that, because that's
Yeah.
potentially a huge
yeah.
undertaking.
Yeah, and again, almost like the Patty for floodplain, JD for you, I'd like you to kind of be the most knowledgeable about our subdivision regulations. I know well the part that pertains to A&Rs, but have I
Right.
looked at the whole thing and read it all? Not really.
Right, and I feel bad, because we did talk about it a while ago, but I've just, my
But I thought-
time is limited.
If I were you, I would have been like, where do I even get
Yes,
started? So I
yes.
just.
No, I appreciate it, thank you, it does help to narrow it down,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I feel a bit of a bear.
Okay. JD, any updates?
Laura,
Oh,
Laura,
Sarah.
Judy has put a lot of time in and she was involved in the first set of them. So she can tell you exactly what probably needs to just be flushed out of there.
Okay, great, and Brant did provide me some of that information from Judy
Yep.
and Judy's email, so I can try to coordinate with her. Now that the days are like, 6 hours, I have a little more time at night, because,
Right.
there's only so much you can do when
Right.
it's dark out, but.
That's true. JD, anything about exit 35?
I've heard nothing.
Okay, all right. Anything else
I
that
think
you're,
we have our new community development
yeah,
person, though.
yeah, starting on December 2nd.
Sylvie was the spear person before they
Okay.
had that, so
Any other updates?
minutes.
Okay, very good. So I do have a few things that I'll just rattle off before we run, but I do want to do approval of minutes. I hope that my time as doing minutes is coming to a close. I'll just share those. Circulated minutes of October 30th. I received no other, assume everyone used them as a soporific, or instead of Ambien. So any other, if there are no comments or corrections, then somebody could do what they need to do.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the October 30th, 2024 meeting.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, Laura has made the motion, it's been seconded, roll call vote. Laura,
Approve, aye.
Sarah,
Yes, approve.
JD,
I can't vote.
He wasn't there.
I wasn't here.
I guess you can abstain.
I'm staying.
Okay, so you're abstaining and I'm approving. All right, very good. So the meeting minutes are approved. Very good. All right, so just a few things for you to be aware. We do have a new community development administrator. I'm very excited about her. She's wonderful, starting on December 2nd.
What is your name?
Her name is Erica Roper. Erica Roper, and she lives, I believe she lives in Northampton.
Oh.
She's nearby. She's got great credentials. And she will, and more so than Sylvia before, she'll really have a role supporting both ZBA and the planning board.
We have a secretary.
And what?
We have a secretary.
We do. We have a new land use assistant. The select board has approved the offer and we're just waiting for her. Her name is Jill. She lives, I think, in Charlemont.
Oh.
And she's great.
Cool.
So she just has to get sworn in. I offered to have her join us tonight, but I guess, anyway, so I'm hoping at our next meeting.
Yep.
Awesome.
So that's really good news. We've agreed that we agreed about our next meeting date on January 8th. I'm still awaiting the online GIS system to be updated with the new, zoning with all the boundaries of with having a zoning overlay.
Mhm.
So people can do that, and the assessor has given this over to the IT people, and I keep checking in, but it hasn't happened yet, but it's still, I'm keeping track of that. The town has obtained grant money for a new comprehensive plan, which is the guiding document for planning in the town. And so sometime in early, probably January or February, this comprehensive planning process is going to kick off. I, as planning board chair, will be the representative to that committee, but there will be periodic updates. And it's an opportunity to have discussions with the town and about what we want out of our town, and I hope it will provide more guidance about the kinds of things we should be doing with our zoning bylaws. All right, so that's something fun to look forward to in 2025. I did circulate this link to citizens planner training, like
Yes.
online training. Great. I mean, the only downside is that it's only on these scheduled dates, and then like, if you can't make it, you can't make it. But I want to give you a heads up. Another thing that I got a lot out of that I won't be able to make this year, but apparently on March 15, 2 days before St. Patrick's Day,
Yes,
it's a Saturday,
okay,
at Holy Cross College in Worcester.
yes.
There will be an annual conference, an all or most of a day conference there for the sort of Massachusetts planning community. And there are all these kinds of educational sessions. It's like, if you can, I would encourage, like, the two of you, like, if you can block off that,
Right, I think I
March
remember
15.
it, we didn't go last year, but I remember
Yeah.
you telling us about it last year too.
like, if you could just put a note in your calendars, because I got so much, it was like a chance to just get a bunch of training on a whole bunch of related topics in a very time efficient way. And then maybe and then there was all this networking and sharing of information. I expect, that's my school vacation week, I expect to be somewhere away on that particular
Somewhere
date
further.
this year.
I hope.
Actually, we want to go someplace where we can ski, so,
Oh, no, well,
So-
but that's fun.
anyway, okay. So I think those are all my updates for you.
Great.
Vacation, I will be away the third week of February. I'll be in Texas here, but I'll be away then.
Okay, all right, we'll keep that in mind.
Yep.
So, any other items? Okay,
Motion to
So-
adjourn?
do I heard a motion to adjourn? Do I hear a second? Okay, Sarah seconded. We are adjourned.